that is CIPG, North-South University Agribusiness Center of Excellence, and South Asian Network for Public Administration at North-South University. I am Professor Nazrul Islam, the director of the North-South and University of Western Australia Business Center of Excellence. And it is indeed a great honor for me to stand before you today to cordially welcome you all to this important event. This seminar represents a critical milestone in our ongoing pursuit of knowledge and innovation in the field of agribusiness, particularly in the context of genetically modified organisms. Our esteemed gathering today is graced by the presence of Sir Richard J. Roberts, a Nobel Laureate in physiology or medicine, whose insights on GMO crops in Bangladesh promise to be highly enlightening. Today we have gathered here at this hall for a significant discourse on a subject of great global importance and relevance. The question of whether human beings should consume genetically modified organisms and whether we should promote the development and propagation of GM foods is a matter that has been the focus of extensive research, discussions, and debates. This is not a binary choice, but rather a crucial discussion that calls for informed choices by consumers and farmers alike. We are living in an era where knowledge on GM food research needs to be made accessible to common people. The decision to consume or grow GM food must be an informed one. However, open dialogue and dissemination of multidisciplinary research findings related to GM food are often hindered by a counter-GMO propaganda that has influenced the pace of research and the release of GMO crops, making it somewhat slow and limited. Therefore, discussions on GMO policy and practices have become essential to bridge the existing gaps in policy, evaluate the progress in research, production, and the commercialization of GMO products. The main objective of this seminar is to review and discuss GMO policies in Bangladesh and South Asian countries, assess the current progress in terms of research and production, and identify the major challenges that lie ahead. Before I go further, let me take a moment to shed some light on the NSU UWA Agribusiness Center of Excellence, I think, which can play a pivotal role in this endeavor. ACE is a collaborative initiative between the Department of Economics at North-South University and the UWA Institute of Agriculture at the University of Western Australia, Australia. It aims to cultivate new ideas that will shape the future of agriculture and food production systems. The world faces an array of challenges, including rules of trade, climate change, resource depletion, changing demographics, and rapid population growth, all of which affect future food supply security. To address these challenges, it is imperative for agriculture to adapt and maintain a state-of-the-art food system that ensures secure and sustainable food production and supply systems. Bangladesh, like many other nations, need a strong agribusiness development capacity. While the agriculture sector in Bangladesh has shown impressive growth and performance in terms of food security, food production, it still faces various constraints such as inadequate research activities, limited commercialization and mechanization, poor infrastructure, a shortage of required policies, including GMO policy. These challenges demand an urgent research-based approach to address food security issues comprehensively. This is where the ACE steps in. Our vision at ACE, that is Agribusiness Center of Excellence, is to implement global standards in agribusiness innovation, develop a productive workforce of next generation leaders in the agriculture and food industry, and enhance economic benefit to the industry while eradicating food insecurities. Our mission is threefold: to strengthen and improve agribusiness research and leadership capacity, facilitate research and training, promote ethical standards, and develop and to promote ethical that underpin sustainable agriculture practices. The Agribusiness Center is designed to build the capacity of actors across the agricultural value chain, fostering leadership and promoting the development of promising technologies. ACE envisions becoming a regional or even a global leader in agribusiness innovation within the next 5 years, addressing issues of poverty, unemployment, and food insecurity in Bangladesh. In conclusion, today's seminar is a testament to our commitment to advancing knowledge and promoting informed decision-making in the field of agribusiness. We believe that through thoughtful discussions, research, and collaboration, we can address the challenges facing agriculture and food production in South Asia. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to the South Asia Institute of Policy and Governance of Northside University and the other collaborator in organizing this seminar, to our distinguished speakers and participants for their valuable contribution. Together, we can create a brighter, more secure future for agriculture and food production in our region. Thank you, and I look forward to an engaging and productive seminar. I welcome you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Nazrul Islam, for the welcome speech. Assalamu alaikum and good morning, everyone. It's a great to have you all in today's talk by Nobel Laureate GMO crops in Bangladesh, policies and practices. As you already are aware that it is jointly organized by South Asian Institute of Policy and Governance and NSU Agribusiness Center. I'm Professor S.K. Tawfiq M. Haq, the Director of the Institute, South Asian Institute of Policy and Governance, and Chair of the Department of Political Science and Sociology, and I will moderate this today's session. My special welcome and thanks to today's keynote speaker, Sir Richard J. Roberts, the Nobel Laureate and a very good friend of North-South University. This is the 4th time that he is visiting North-South University. Last time when he visited, it was in 2019. Coincidentally, it was the same date, 28th of October of 2019. I don't know how we came out with the same date after this. Yeah, last time also we organized, but that we didn't know that this date will become so difficult. And I give a special thanks to all participants physically present here today, because I do understand how difficult it is to travel from one part of the city to another, especially as far as North South today. So special thanks to all of you who are present here physically. And also I can see that there are a good number of participants virtually joining. So even with all difficulties, I am very much hopeful that we'll have a very productive session and discussion. So what we did in last time in 2019, I'm sure many of you were present at that seminar also, we discussed about South Asian perspective of GMO crops. This time we will be focusing more on Bangladesh, but definitely with a broader perspective of global situation of food security, food crisis, and other things. So let me tell a little bit about the motive behind today's talk on GMO in brief. The question whether the human being should eat food from genetically modified organisms, and if they should develop and propagate GM food, is not amenable to a simple yes or no answer. Knowledge of GM foods research to the common people and the decision to consume or grow GM food requires informed choice and decision of the consumers as well as farmers. Open talks and dissemination on research and release of GM food are also being constrained by counter GMO propaganda, as our previous speaker also was talking, across the globe, which marks the pace of research and release of GMO crops somewhat slow and limited. Therefore, discussion on GMO policy and practices is very much essential to appreciate the existing gaps in policy, progress on research and release and commercialization of GMO products. The main objective of today's seminar is to review and discuss the policies and practices of GMO crops in Bangladesh with, as I said, with a broader context of global reality, and assess current progress in terms of research, production, and identify the major challenges. Now, let me a little bit introduce the SIPG. I will not take much time. The SIPG is one of the leading and although one of the oldest research institute within an institute established in 2008. This is actually a South Asian institute which has a component like education program, master's program like Masters in Public Policy and Governance, and also executive masters in policy and governance. Especially in MPPG, the regular masters, we have students coming from different part of the South Asia like Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, and Bangladesh. And our executive masters is a new masters, which is also for the professionals mostly. We are having two centers within the institute, Center for Policy Peace Studies, CPS, and Center for Migration Studies. The South Asian Institute is heavily engaged with regional research, comparative studies, and also cross-country kind of the studies in South Asia, and also definitely on Bangladesh. So we are publishing books, journals, journal articles. We are regularly organizing seminars and international conferences. And I'm sure that most of you are aware about those things. I don't want to prolong the speech by giving you that account. Let me now tell you about the modality of the program today. You all know that main attraction is the keynote by the Nobel Laureate, Sir Rich Roberts. But then after his speech, which will be probably 30 minutes long, and then we'll have 4 designated discussions. One is Mr. Anwar Farooq, former Agriculture Secretary. He will be focusing on challenges of food security in Bangladesh. Then we will have with us Professor Dr. Abdul Khalek from our microbiology department. He will be talking about biotechnology for agriculture innovation in Bangladesh. And then we will listen from Dr. Mahfuzul Haq. He will be discussing the GMO policy regime in Bangladesh. And finally, Dr. Shakhawat Islam Sohel, who will also talk about the environmental concern of releasing GMO crops in Bangladesh. So our discussions will get 5 to 6 minutes time. And then we will go for open round and 30 minutes for open discussion. We'll take questions and comments from the floor, but also from the online participants. So if you have questions, please give it in the chat box, and then we will try to address those. Finally, our session chair, Professor Atikul Islam, will be giving his speech. And then the vote of thanks and concluding remarks will be given by Dr. Hassan Mahmood Reza, Dean School of Health and Life Sciences. So with that modality, I would not like to wait anymore than inviting our Nobel laureate. But before that, I just want to give a short bio of him. Sir Richard John Roberts is a biochemist and molecular biologist. He was awarded the 1993 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for the discovery of introns in eukaryotic DNA and mechanism of gene splicing. He currently works at New England Biolabs, USA. In 1977, he published his discovery of RNA splicing. In 1992, he moved to New England Biolabs. The following year, he shared a Nobel Prize with his former colleagues at Cold Spring Harbor Lab, Philip Allen Sharp. Robert's discovery of the alternative splicing of genes in particular has had a profound impact on the study and applications of molecular biology. Robert's research in this field resulted in a fundamental shift in our understanding of genetics and has led to the discovery of split genes in higher organisms, including human beings. Roberts was knighted in 2008. He is a member of the advisory board of Patient Innovation, a nonprofit international multilingual free venue for patients and caregivers of any disease to share their innovations. He also is a chairman of the Laureate Science Alliance, a nonprofit supporting research worldwide. In 2006, Roberts and other Nobel laureates composed and signed a laureate's letter supporting precision agriculture, addressed to the leaders of Greenpeace, the United Nations, and global governments. And Sir Roberts has advocated for genetically modified organisms in general and golden rice in particular to advance health in developing countries, noting the high safety record of GM food. He is also one of the International Advisory Board members of NSU. So with that note, so I would like to invite Dr. Robert to come and give his speech.
Okay, so
Can you change the slides from
this one?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So I think it's not going to work if you're going to have all three slides. Presenter mode normally shows the. Huh? Okay. Oh, we'll have to do the best we can here. What I'm going to do today is to talk a little bit during the talk about Bangladesh, but I'm going to raise some of the more profound issues as to why GMOs have so many opponents, why so many people have been opposed to them. And I want to really give you a good perspective as to why people do what they do when it comes to GMOs. You know, here, you make your own policy within this country, and provided it doesn't involve Europe in any way, you're free to do whatever you want. But if it involves Europe, you will discover that the trade ministers around the world in developing countries don't want the agricultural ministers to get involved with GMOs because Europe is adamantly opposed to them. And I will tell you why. I will go through the reasons for this. Now maybe, is this working? It's not advancing. Okay. Well, it's okay. Let's get on. The argument that I produced when I first got involved in this was I was invited to talk to the European Commission a number of years ago about the future of medicine. And the future of medicine is very different if you're in a developed country or a developing country. And I made the argument that food is medicine for the poor people in the developing world who don't have enough to eat. And I did this because I'd just been to a meeting in which a lot of agricultural biochemists in Europe were saying how difficult it was to do their work. So I made the case that food is medicine. I gave an outline of some of the things I'm going to say today, but I got an amazing reaction. An Italian senator who was sitting in the meeting listening came up to me afterwards and said she'd been totally opposed to GMOs until she heard what I had to say, and she changed her mind completely. I've had similar experiences with other people, staff members of some of the European senators, local schools that I go and talk at. A lot of people are really opposed to GMOs because they've heard a great deal of misinformation and deliberate disinformation from Greenpeace and the anti-GMO people. And it really, what is going on is not good. And the nice thing is that GMOs can be good not just for food, but they can also help counteract climate change. You know, CO2 is building up in the atmosphere. Plants are really good at sucking it out of the atmosphere. And we now know how to make them do that much more effectively than they ever do naturally. We can put in pathways into plants that will suck CO2 out of the atmosphere. And there are really a lot of opportunities because of the amount of crops that are grown in which the plants are developed by the agriculturalists to remove CO2 from the atmosphere. And that would be very good. You know, I really can't read this. What? That's better. Okay. It's not that I want to read the slides, but I want you to be able to see them. And also I want to remind myself of what I need to say. So the first thing I'm going to say is that the term genetically modified organisms is very misleading. Every one of us in this room is genetically modified. We don't look like our parents. We picked up genes from our mother and from our father. Every life form on this earth is genetically modified, right? By a process, we call it evolution, right? We didn't start off looking like this. We started off looking like bacteria, actually something even simpler than bacteria. And if you now look in plants or in humans, and you look at the genes that are present within plants and with us, you will find genes that have come from many different places. Plants have bacterial genes in them. Many bacteria know how to transfer their genes into plants. It's not unnatural. This is a very natural process. And when you look at plant breeders, for something like 10, 12,000 years now, we've had the agriculturalists who've been improving the plants. They took the plants that grew out in the wild, made crosses of them, and produced plants that are much better. They have higher yields, maybe they're more nutritious. They have lots of improvements. It's all by genetic modification. So GMOs is not something new. It's just the way in which we do it is a little new, but it's not unnatural. And hypocrisy absolutely abounds in the anti-GMO movement. So I don't know, maybe someone in this room is diabetic. There are many diabetics around the world. You know, they take human insulin. You know, you need to supplement the insulin if you're diabetic. Where do you think that insulin comes from? Have you ever heard of a donation program where humans give insulin so that they can be then given the insulin to diabetics? No. Insulin comes because the human insulin gene was moved into another organism by a GMO method. The insulin that diabetics take is a GMO. It was produced from a GMO. Why do you think that Greenpeace and the other anti-GMO people don't go out and say, hey, we've got to stop doing this? You think they should let all the diabetics die, or they should start some program in order to make humans donate the insulin to go to diabetics? No, of course not. That's not the way modern medicine works, and it's not the way that anybody would like to see this go. But Greenpeace find this perfectly acceptable. It's only when you put genes in plants that you start to run into problems. During this recent COVID epidemic, we produced vaccines using GMOs in a fast way, faster than any other way. The usual time period for making a vaccine and testing it is maybe 4, 5, 6 years. We did it in a year, and we did it because the basic enzymes that were necessary to make the messenger RNAs that went into the vaccines, they all came from GMO organisms. Why didn't the Europeans object to this? But the worst thing, the worst hypocrisy that I've come across is that if you go to Europe and you ask, you see sheep, you see cows, they're grazing, you see pigs. These are producing the meat that the Europeans eat. Where do you think the food supply for these animals comes from? Well, it comes from GMOs. They import millions of tons of GMOs into Europe to feed the animals. And then the Europeans eat the animals. So if these GMOs are so dangerous, why aren't all these animals dying? Why aren't the animal rights activists up in arms saying how dangerous this is? Well, of course, this is a major part of the European food supply. They don't tell you that this is a problem. Now, a few years ago, I was at a meeting just before I talked to the European Commission, and I decided that I was going to start a campaign, and this was briefly mentioned by Tawfiq earlier. We now have 166 Nobel laureates who are all signed on to this basic statement that we sent to Greenpeace and we sent around the world, saying that GMOs are safe. The first GMOs were made back in the 1980s. Since then, there have been millions of tons produced. How many accidents have there been? How many problems? Zero. Not a single problem associated with GMOs. And yet these are terribly dangerous things if you listen to Greenpeace and you listen to the anti-GMO activists. I like the cartoon on the right here. It's a member of the anti-GMO staff trying to tell this little boy in Africa, do you know what this is going to do to you if you eat it? He says, yes, it will allow me to live. And I think that's the message that I want to get across to you today. GMOs provide an opportunity for us to take care of the poor people in the developing countries by increasing their ability to grow crops and to have yields and to provide food. And food means agriculture. You know, you live here in Dakar. You don't have a little plot outside your house or outside your apartment where you grow the food you eat. You head down to the supermarket and buy it in the supermarket. Where does that come from? It comes from agriculture. And in the West, in the developed countries, agriculture has done wonders because the big companies, the big agricultural companies have spent huge amounts of money developing better crops, doing it by essentially old-fashioned techniques. They didn't come to Bangladesh and improve your crops for you. Why do you think that was? Why didn't they come here and make your crops better? Well, it's because they couldn't make money here. But in the West, they could make money. And I think one lesson that is worth looking at and thinking about is that when people do things, it's always good to find what are the motivations. Why is it that people do this or that or the other? Well, I can tell you, it's either money or power. Very rarely do you find anybody doing anything for another reason. If you look here at corn, you go to the supermarket, at least in the West, I suspect you get it here too. You find these beautiful ears of corn on the right-hand side. The original corn came from a plant called teosinte, shown on the left here. Tiny plant, rather a shriveled sort of corn cob on it, very few grains. but by engineering these, by plant breeding, farmers in Mexico and elsewhere eventually got to varieties of corn with all of these seeds on them that we now eat routinely. This is all genetic modification, most of it done by traditional methods. And the traditional method is shown here on the left. When you want to improve a crop, you find a partner, something that will mate with that plant, something that can provide genes, and you try to take the genes from the crop that you want with the trait. Maybe it will grow taller. Maybe it's nice, you want something that grows taller. You find a crop that will grow tall and cross it to whatever it is you're working with at the moment, hoping that you can get the genes or gene for growing tall into your new crop. This is a very long process. It can take anywhere from 10, sometimes 20, sometimes 30 years of breeding, because plants breed rather slowly. It takes a long time to do this. If that doesn't work, the traditional methods are to mutagenize the crop, shine X-rays, put on chemicals to make mutants of the plant in the hope that it will do better than it's doing at the moment. Greenpeace says this is all fine, this is lovely. But the GMO method takes advantage of the fact that there is a bacterium, one of many, called Agrobacterium tumefaciens, that has within it a little piece of DNA, and it's figured out how to take that little piece of DNA and put it into the plant that it's growing on. And Mark Van Montague and a bunch of others realized that instead of this plasmid that Agrobacterium normally has, they could add a gene that they wanted to go into the plant. And that's what they did. And in that, they invented the original GMO method. This is something that Agrobacterium does naturally. Okay? This isn't something that Agrobacterium doesn't do. We now know how to do this a lot more effectively and efficiently than the original method, but this was developed back in 1980. And this is considered by Greenpeace to be incredibly dangerous. Even though what you're doing is you're taking one gene, you know what it is, and putting it into the plant. By the traditional method, you're mixing hundreds of genes into the new plant. This is just a quick summary of the method. So the original traditional breeding, 2 plants, 50-50 of the genes, just like we make babies. Half the genes from the mother, half from the father, and the baby picks it up. You do the same with plants. And then once you find a plant that has picked up the gene you want, you then keep crossing that back to the original to get rid of the genes you don't want. And then eventually you get something that is good, that grows better, produces more fruit or whatever you want. The original GMO method greatly improved that process. First of all, it was a precise way of putting new genes into plants. You knew what that gene was. You didn't necessarily know where it would go, but it was the early days. Now we have much more efficient, much more precise methods using CRISPR technology, which you probably all heard about. Nobel Prize was given to Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuel Charpentier for this discovery a few years ago. This allows you to do things even more precisely. It allows you to take a gene, to put it exactly where you want it to go, and improve the crop that it's gone into very easily. I like to use a simple example. You know, all this genetics can get a little tough to understand. I like to use this analogy. I've got 2 cars. One has a GPS system and one doesn't. And I want to move that GPS system from the car that has it to the one that doesn't. So what do? Do I take the 2 cars apart, mix all the parts randomly, which is the traditional breeding method, and then just pick the version that comes up with the GPS? Well, no, I don't. I'm much more sensible than that. I unplug the GPS system from one car and I put it into the other one. That is the GMO method. The GMO method takes the gene you want and puts it exactly where you want it to go. You listen to the anti-GMO people, they'll tell you, hey, You take this GPS from an airplane and put it in a car, the car's going to fly. Nonsense, absolute nonsense. But they've gotten much mileage out of that. They probably scared one or two of you people in this room by using these kinds of analogies. They went to Hollywood, had them made movies. You know, Hollywood really knows how to scare people. They went to Hollywood, had movies made to scare everybody about how dangerous this was. But what's important is not the method. What's important is the final product. Okay? You know, you ladies, when you go to a store and you buy a dress, you don't immediately go in and say, well, how was this made? You say, hey, this looks good. I'm going to look good in this one. It's the product, the final product that is important. And this is very true for any sort of plant. You know, if you make a new plant using traditional breeding methods, you want to make sure that the final product is safe. You want to make sure that there's not some new allergen being produced. Very important. So when Europe first got involved in all of this, they got involved by a rather surreptitious way. But what happened was that they discovered that they didn't need GMOs because they had plenty of food. If ever you go to Europe, you go to a restaurant, you don't see any shortage of food. There's stacks of food there. So why didn't Europe say, well, we don't want to use this food ourselves, but it's not dangerous, it's not unsafe in any way. And you could imagine that at the start, when we didn't know very much about the potential for GMOs, that perhaps they could be some dangers that we hadn't thought of. You know, every time you bring something new to market, you're never quite sure whether it's going to function the way you thought it would. But the Europeans weren't concerned so much about that. And you have to ask, why did they try to stop these products which the developing world needed and they didn't? And you know, politics, money, yeah, both of those things. The Europeans were a little concerned that the US agricultural companies were taking over the food supply in Europe. And they didn't want that. And so there was quite a lot of antipathy against American companies, agricultural companies. Monsanto was one of the big culprits. And when it first introduced GMO crops into Europe, it made a huge mistake. You cannot, they admit it. They admit they made a huge mistake. They provided fodder for the anti-GMO people because they put it in and they charged the farmers more for this new seeds that they were producing by the GMO method. And the farmers then charged the consumers more. So the price went up. New technique, shouldn't you have lowered the price? You ask the Monsanto CEO, I asked him to his face about this. He said, yes, we made a mistake. We should have lowered the price. People don't want to pay more for something that they have been told might be dangerous. So this was what the Green parties came up with. They're going to say GMO methods might be dangerous. It's early days. We don't know whether there's a problem. Let's do some science. Let's find out whether or not these things are safe or not. We're now 40 years into this process. 40 years. Millions of tons of GMO crops have been consumed around the world and not one problem. Shouldn't Greenpeace come out and say, hey, we call for the science to be done. We call for you to test these things. You've done it. No problems. They're safe. No, unfortunately, money and politics still allows them to go the way they used to go. And the Europeans they love this precautionary principle. How much evidence is enough before you decide something is safe or not? 10 years, 20 years, 100 years, 500 years? Ask yourself, I bet every one of you has a cell phone on the desk in front of you, in your pocket. A cell phone safe? Well, it turns out that the UV light coming from the screen of a cell phone causes macular degeneration. And now if you go and talk to ophthalmologists around the world, you will discover that macular degeneration, which used only to show up when you were quite old, is now showing up in teenagers. It's showing up in 20-year-olds because they spend so much time looking at their phones. Where was the precautionary principle there? Why didn't Europe abide by it then? Well, we probably know why we're all addicted to cell phones, because there's a lot of useful information you get that way. And unfortunately, Greenpeace were not content just to try to stop it in Europe. They go around the world. They came to Bangladesh and told you how dangerous these things were. They went to China. They went to Africa. They went everywhere claiming that GMOs were dangerous. And it turned out this was very good for their fundraising, because they tripled the annual donations that they received, to a point where now their annual budget in Europe is around $500 million. $500 million. And almost all of that was due to the fact that they were anti-GMO. I won't quickly to go through a couple of case studies here, but the most important one, and the one that I think applies very heavily in Bangladesh, concerns vitamin A deficiency. Around the world, there are somewhere between 250 million to 500 million children who die every year because they don't get enough vitamin A. Now, if you eat carrots, if you eat almost any vegetable that has color, you will get the precursor of vitamin A, which is beta carotene. In the West, carrots are what we eat all the time. And if we don't get enough, we can take pills. But in the developing countries, the poor farmers don't have access to all of these. They very often can't afford to grow these kinds of crops. And so what happened was that a man called Peter Jennings, way back in the 1980s, decided, hey, maybe we could make rice, which is a major consumable food in the developing countries, maybe we could arrange the grain of the rice to produce beta carotene. The plant produces it. They tried to make it go into the grain using traditional methods, didn't work. And then Ingo Petraitis and Peter Bayer in Europe figured out, here are two genes, we put these into rice, we get them expressed in the grain, and we end up with golden rice, which will provide the beta carotene that is the precursor for vitamin A. And in this way, we should be able to save a lot of children's lives, because they will get the vitamin A that they need in order to grow up healthy, to see, and also for various developments in the immune system. This became a reality. See the date there? 1999, 24 years ago, this first became a reality. Now, typically, when any new crop is developed in a research institute or in the lab, it may take 3, 4, 5 years before it makes it into commercial production. You have to do the test, make sure it will grow okay, and so on. So normally, certainly by 2004, this would have been available to anybody who wanted it. But Greenpeace realized that this was going to be a major problem for them, because it was a pharmaceutical, and people like pharmaceuticals. They like drugs. They like things that are going to make you healthy. And so they went out of their way to stop it. They did everything they could to stop it. They spent millions of dollars to stop it ever reaching commercial production. And it's really only last year that it was first made into a commercial product in the Philippines, is now being sold in the Philippines. But of course, Greenpeace are not very happy about that, and so they've gone to the Philippine Supreme Court to try and stop them from allowing this to take place. There was a huge trial done in China showing that this did improve the vitamin A content in children. So since 2005, literally millions of children have died or suffered because of vitamin A deficiency. I want to know how many have to die before we say this is a crime against humanity. This is not right. We shouldn't be doing this. These are some positive examples. I don't want to go through them all. I just want to point out that here in Bangladesh, you made a very important decision a number of years ago when you grow brinjal. You can put a gene called the Bt gene, which is a toxin for insects, but not for humans, into plants. And Bt brinjal became a reality here in Bangladesh because of the intervention of the Prime Minister. The other government ministers, that there was one man in particular who was very opposed to this. And he successfully stopped it for a while until the Prime Minister stepped in and said it's okay. The same individual is now trying to stop golden rice from coming here. Golden rice could save children's lives here in Bangladesh. Why would you not want it? It is safe, perfectly safe. It's been approved for consumption in the US, in Canada, in New Zealand, in other countries. It's being eaten in the Philippines. It's been eaten in China. Why would you stop it? I don't know. There are a number of other important GM crops that are under development around the world. This is just a small list here. I think the one I like best of all of this is actually bananas. In Uganda, 30% of the caloric intake of every Ugandan comes from bananas or some derivative thereof. Bananas are not very good plants in the sense they're not very resistant to insects. But it's easy to put in genes that will make them resistant to insects. This has been done for bananas. The parliament in Uganda says, hey, this is great. We want it. The Prime Minister, 100% behind it. The President behind it. But unfortunately, Greenpeace got to the President's wife and his daughter and convinced them that they were dangerous. And then they did a number on the President. He refused to sign the bill. And they're still waiting for the better bananas that GMOs can bring. Terrible. Have to remember that food choice is a luxury of the developed world, right? You go to a supermarket in Paris, you go to a restaurant, you have massive choice. But unfortunately, you go to the developing countries and you see the small farmers, the smallholder farmers, they don't have that choice. And yet, because of the way that GMO foods are made, they're probably safer than traditionally bred foods. Appalling that you would want to stop them. So we need to make sure that we follow science facts. We don't want to take all this misinformation that is being coming from the anti-GMO people, from Greenpeace and co. They need to listen to the science. They need to accept the science shows that these things are safe. And we need a lot more science in politics. And, you know, I'm sure you all know it would be nice if we had a little less politics in science too. Politicians should listen to the science they fund. Why do they fund science if they're not going to listen to the scientists who then go around showing that things are safe? Civil society can make a big difference too. The major religious leaders should come out. I talked to the Pope. I've been trying to get the Pope to make a statement about this, which would have huge impacts in the developing world. Rotary clubs are good. Influential celebrities and the media. I think the media actually has quite a responsibility here. They like to show you bad news. They like to show you if there's an issue, they want to show you both sides of it, but they don't care whether it's 99% one from one side and 1% from the other. They always show it as 50-50. They need to do a better job of showing the facts in issues like this. Now, the only good thing that has come out of the Catholic Church is this one. So they have a ceremony called Eucharist in which they drink some wine and eat some bread, and it's supposed to be from representing the body of Christ. Turns out the Vatican put out this encyclical some time ago saying that if the wine or the food, the bread, is made from GMO materials, it's okay, it works. I thought that was pretty good. It's not received as much publicity as I would like to see. number of positive signs in Europe. They're having problems. You know, in Champagne, the grapes, the good grapes that produce champagne don't grow very well anymore. And they've started growing them in England. This is a result of climate change. But it would be easy to fix. You could make these grapes grow much better as a result of the heat that is now being produced, just using a GMO grape. But they've not done that because of Europe. So Finland are doing well. Romania is doing well. England, now that they're out of the European Union, they have some major stuff going through at the moment. There's a very good report by the Royal Society that just came out this week talking about the value that GMOs can have. And I like to conclude with this slide. I say, have a heart. When you compare the starving children in the developed world with the nice restaurants in France, okay, you don't hear those children saying, what am I going to eat today? They say, will I eat today? They want more food, they want better food, and we can provide it. And their local scientists can provide it. Scientists here can make GMO crops that will improve the crops that you currently grow. So I say, we give them a chance. And we have a website devoted to all of this. It's called supportprecisionagriculture.org. Many talks that I've given are present on it. There's a lot of factual information about GMOs. If you want to see the 166 Nobel laureates who've signed on, their names are all listed, and you can join us. You can sign on too. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Rich Roberts, for a fascinating deliberation as always. And as I was saying that we had the same kind of the seminar 6 years back before COVID on the same day. So this time also that definitely he came out with some relevant discussions and debates related to it, anti-GMO propaganda, and also some examples very relevant for Bangladesh. This is a kind of a very interesting topic to be discussed, and I'm sure that for our students, our faculty members, some of the media also present here will be interesting food for thought for them. So now, as I said, that we'll go for a very quick round of discussion talk. I would request the discussions that we have 4 that to be very precise, finish it by 5 minutes, because we want to take more questions, and I'm sure that our audience and the people joining online will be interested to listen from our Nobel laureate, and they have lots of questions in their mind. So first, I would like to invite our designated panelist, Mr. Anwar Farooq, former Secretary, Minister of Agriculture, Government of Bangladesh, to make his comments on the challenges of food security in Bangladesh and the issue of GMO.
Thank you, Dr. Tawfiq. Thank you for inviting me in this session. So my regards to Sir Richard for his nice presentation, and we met him in 6 years back in the same room. There is not a lot of changes we achieved in Bangladesh, except releasing BT cotton this year. And my gratitude and thanks to Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Atikul Islam. Yes, we achieved great success in Bangladesh since we followed from 1972 to till today. We are from a net deficit country to a food surplus country. We achieved through success, our success through science, what we believe. We were traditional in agriculture. We started irrigated agriculture modern technologies in 72. With the introduction of HOAV high yielding varieties, our rice production started increasing from 1.1 million metric ton to now it is 40 million metric ton. We are producing rice. So now we are almost safe with our grains with rice. So when we started, our experiences, when we started with HOAVs, there are a lot of criticisms. These are not good, this has this much of impacts. And then when in 1999, we started with hybrids, again, the same propaganda and criticism were there. But today, HOAV hybrid is a reality in Bangladesh. For ensuring food security and safety, it has no options. So what my belief is that every time since from the Archimedes time, there's always a negative propaganda against science are there. Every innovation, it has negative comments, but still in agriculture, there is no options without science because we are at this moment we are safe, but how long it will continue? Because what are the major challenges we are facing? Our population is increasing, our land is decreasing, land fertility is decreasing, and also we need to double our food production by 2040 with the decreasing trend of land. How it is possible? We have to increase our productivity. And the great challenge at this moment for our in Bangladesh is to ensure safe and nutritious food for the people. So to address these issues, we need some more technological advancement. The major, for example, the major criticism against biotechnology, which has been addressed by Robert today, the major was that it is a human life becomes a commodity with biotechnology. This has been a criticism, but you answered very clearly, addressed these issues. Gene manipulation is another issue, negative criticism, and the costs quite expensive. Yes, in the initial it was expensive, but now it is a reality. And reduction of human genetic biodiversity is a criticism against GMO, so which also you address very clearly. And loss of field of uncertainty. That's the major issue at this moment Bangladesh is facing. What will be the consequences after 10, 20 or 50 years? We never know. So what will be happening after 50 years is really, we don't know. But for that reason, do we need to starve? We will not be able to supply food for our people. We should not. We have to do something to survive today, then think about what is going to be happen 50 years later. And again, introduction of GMO, it is not a mandatory for our farmers. It is an option. When we released Briti Binjal, lot of criticism are there, but it's an option for them. So it is still working in the field, very good. And in the pipeline, the more things, products are coming. You see, the criticism like that when we started with rice and edible commodities, agricultural commodities, they said it is a human consumption. So we need to go through more precious and more, we take more time. But when we started with BT cotton, the same issues arises. I say that it is not we are not eating cotton. So why don't you are allowing them? So it takes 5 to 6 years. Now finally we release. So my belief is that in order to ensuring food security for the coming years, we have no other options. We have to go for increasing productivity through science. And one of the technology could be biotechnology. So from the government side, our Prime Minister, she is very much, she's pro-science. Our earlier agriculture minister, she was also pro-science. The present minister, he is also pro-science. But still, there are some problems with the regulatory ministry that we are not getting good answers from them. So one of my recommendation is that in the process to ensure the policy's effective implementation is needed. So the regulatory ministry should have more technical people than administrative people, those who knows the science. More scientific people is needed. And again, the people who are working there, they are transferable job. Like people who comes from here for 3 to 6 months, so understanding the science and understanding the necessity, they got transferred. So there should be some mechanism is needed which could help us to deal with the issues in the years to come. It's very important. We have no other options. Increasing our productivity to ensuring safe and nutritious food, we have to go with science. And fortunately and unfortunately, during the British Angel releasing time, I was working as a Director General Sidway. So Greenpeace people have to visited me and from America to my village. They came to meet me and saying all the negative impacts. And then I answered him only one question to answer this. Then what is your problem with our release? Why you people came from America to meet me not to release British Angel? What is your problem? We don't feel any problem because we need to feed our people. Our people, we need to ensure food security for our people first. and then we'll think of it. So I think we will come forward. We will be overcome all the obstacles and things are coming. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sir Anol Haq, former Agriculture Secretary. It's very interesting that because he is directly working even after his retirement in the field and very much engaged with the seed companies, and also he is part of the Bangladesh Safe Food Association. So yeah, that's very important. And also Robert said that the less politics in science and more science in politics. But also for case of Bangladesh, I think we need to also learn that what happened in Europe and many other countries, especially the example that Robert was giving for Monsanto. So I'm listening also from many of these anti-GMO people in Bangladesh, like Farhad Mazar, Farid Akhtar, or others, that they bring this argument that there should be also less business in science. And so because if science is influenced by profit and the profit-making motive, so that's their argument mainly they're coming out. So in Bangladesh, I think that also need to be taken care of, that how much it has been proven that this is for the betterment of the general people, not only for the profit will be there. Definitely the seed companies, agriculture farms, they will be in the business, so they will make profit. But if as the
Benefit.
and also as the European example was given, if the prices goes up rather than coming down after having a new technology, then this is obvious question of motivation of money will be coming. So that should be taken care of.
Again, you see that we are importing canola, maize, soybean. They all are GMOs, and we are having this every day. We don't care. But when we are trying to release some product in our country, when they're selling their products in Bangladesh, it's okay. When we are trying to developing our products, then the problem comes.
Thank you very much. So yeah, so let's go to our next discussion very quickly again. Professor Dr. Abdul Khalek, Department of Biochemistry and Microbiology, and he will be shedding some lights on the role of biotechnology for agriculture innovations in Bangladesh. Professor Khalek, 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Professor Tawfiq. Respected keynote speaker, the Nobel Laureate, Sir Richard J. Robert, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Atikul Islam, respected panelist and distinguished participant, Assalamu alaikum, and good morning to everyone, and good afternoon. GMO is directly related to biotechnology, as we understand from Robert's speech. And this is a technology based on biological system like plants, animals, microbes are part of the cells. It could be cell, tissue, or even gene or DNA to derive the base goods and service for the benefit of the human being. When you talk about biotechnology, we usually mean the technology derived primarily through the use of recombinant DNA technology. I think many of us understand about the recombinant DNA technology. I think this is one of the blessed technologies so far developed, that helping us to introduce one characteristic from one organism to another, or one plant to an animal. So that's where we are getting a lot of innovative product like GMO crops, a transgenic animal, transgenic plant, etc. And these are all are the scientists are developing this thing for the well-being of the human. And the activists or the anti-GMO activists, those are working, this one of their concern is the health issue. But so far, the GMO product marketing is done around the globe, except few European countries. There is no such report that, okay, it was very harmful for health. So I think the participant here who are present, we can echo with the movement of Robert that we should support GMO, and for that, whatever need we should do in the forward. In fact, last September, I think Professor Dr. Anwar Professor was there. The agriculture minister and USDA, they organized a scientific seminar, and there the speaker emphasized the use of scientific risk-based procedure to expedite farmers' access to new tools and the critical role of innovative biotechnology in assisting farmers in adapting to and mitigating the impact of climate change. Ultimately, they are reinforcing food security for Bangladesh. We all know Bangladesh is one of the countries in the world which is most vulnerable to climate change. Biotechnology could be one that can be used, and scientists can accelerate the rate at which they can introduce new plant varieties which are able to respond to changing environmental conditions. The growing threat of salinity, drought, and new pests have made food production increasingly challenging for Bangladeshi farmers. So biotechnology, I mean gene editing, can accelerate the introduction of new plant varieties and thereby help farmers produce more food with fewer resources and identify what other technologies help Bangladesh reach its climate change goal. And as we know already, the Bangladesh government recently approved, commercially approved the biotech product BT brinjal and BT cotton. BT brinjal, in fact, is globally recognized now. We also have seen that in Robert's presentation. And Bangladeshi farmers have significantly reduced pesticide use and increased their benefit through this BT brinjal. And I have few data with me regarding this BT brinjal, and we are very proud of this product. This is the first biotech product developed by the Bangladeshi scientists, and this is a GMO. Farmers growing insect-resistant BT brinjal improved their yield by 51% and cut pesticide cost by 37.5%. This was, of course, published in a journal. BT brinjal farmers sell more eggplant and receive higher price for the output, and resulting in a 128% increase in their revenue. And they could reduce the toxicity of pesticides by about 76%. And there was a lot of interview and study done after the marketing of this BT brinjal. And so for almost 9 years, BT brinjal is in the market and very good and it's healthy. And we have not reported a single person who got diseased after taking this. So there is no health issues. It is healthy, no doubt. And BT cotton is another one. And there are a few other products developed by the Bangladeshi scientists, Bangladeshi biotechnologists, which are probably in the future it will be approved. Like one already mentioned, that is vitamin A and this golden rice. Golden rice is only approved in Philippines. And I think this youth project, Bangladesh was also a part of that. And I think it was funded by Rockefeller Foundation or something. And our Dhaka University's Plant Biotechnology Laboratory, Professor Jeba Islam Shiraz, Professor Hasina Khan was part of that. Another product is lead-blight resistant potato, rice rich with high zinc and iron content, etc. These are our kind of own product developed by the Bangladeshi biotechnologists. So we all know Bangladesh is comparatively a very small country with a population growth rate of about 2.3%. And agriculture is the major industry upon which 80% of the people depend. And we all know rice is the major food crop, which is cultivated around the year, and jute had been the major cash crop till recently. Although Bangladesh is one of the poorest among the developing countries in Asia, yet for biotechnology development, it has a great potential. These potentials lie primarily in its rich, fertile agricultural land as well as biodiversity. Agriculture being the traditional industry of Bangladesh, agricultural biotechnology, be it plant biotechnology or animal biotechnology or fisheries or aquaculture, in every aspect, Bangladesh has a great potentiality for future development. In fact, nowhere in the world such a fertile alluvial soil is available where plants could be grown so easily. What is needed is a good variety of plant or a good stock of animal, poultry, fish, which can be developed through the modern biotechnological research. For this, the country needs a good infrastructure as well as a team of well-trained manpower for doing research in the modern field of biotechnology, like genetic engineering, cell culture, cell fusion, protein engineering, enzyme technology, etc. Bangladesh has also a good potential for the development of industrial biotechnology based on agriculture. For this, small-scale agricultural biotechnology may be encouraged, which is most suitable for our country. Well, sustainable agriculture is an approach for prioritizes meeting current food production need while conserving and enhancing natural sources for future generation. To achieve agricultural sustainability, it is very necessary to strike a balance between economical viability, environmental stewardship, as well as social responsibility. This can be difficult, especially in the face of biotic and abiotic stresses like pest, disease, climate change, soil degradation, as well as water depletion. The prevalence of pest and disease, which can significantly diminish crop yield and quality, is one of the greatest obstacles to sustainable agriculture. So again, biotechnology can be used to create crops which are resistant to pests and diseases to address these issues. Soil nutrient deficiency is another obstacle to sustainable agriculture that can also be reduced through biotechnology. Also, the plant health can be improved using biotechnology. Biotechnology has the potential to play a significant role in developing more productive and nutritious crop. However, it is at the same time, it is essential to ensure that these technologies are developed in a responsible manner and that their benefits are distributed equitably across communities and regions.
Okay.
So finally, I have few suggestions for the future improvement of biotechnology in Bangladesh. Prioritizing biotechnology for national development by the government, and a perspective plan for the next 20 years, task force for biotechnology development. Another could be creation of center of excellence under joint collaboration. So biotechnology is a subject of precision and excellence, therefore it needs center of excellence. But since for individual nations, it is difficult to build up such centers, a joint collaboration program of the region may be resolve the problem. And finally, my recommendation is common consortium for Asian countries. Most of the Asian countries are poor, we know. Therefore, a common fund for biotechnological development raised through voluntarily or compulsory contribution commensurating with their national capacity may be raised in order to take action-oriented programs common to all countries of this region. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Khalek. Putting a picture of the current situation of biotechnological research and its implementation in Bangladesh, and that comes up with the issue of the policy infrastructure with the physical infrastructure also. So now we go to Dr. Mahfuzul Haq, Faculty of South Asian Institute of Policy and Governance and former secretary also, to give a idea about where Bangladesh stands in terms of policy support in this area.
Good afternoon, distinguished Chair, Sir Richard, distinguished Vice Chancellor, distinguished panelists, distinguished professors, guests. I begin with good news. The good news is from Philippines that UD scientist has made a breakthrough for low glycemic index rise, and that just came in October 16th. So that will be a great achievement to lower or to combat diabetes. So that's a good scientific investment. I also come up with some praises with regard to GMO. Scientists, they often said that, can we feed 10 billion people? Biotechnology is a new knowledge to advance and not to retrogress humanity. Biotechnology promotes human progress and development. Biotechnology is not a silver bullet, but a key tool for attaining food security. So those are some of the good things that happened. But also there are some bad news that's coming from different parts of the world. And that is to deal with the problems that we are often troubled with. To start with, one of my friends who lives in Panama, I asked him to talk about GMO since he's an agriculturist. He said, the GMO is a complex problem. The primary problem is intent. Big AG companies produce GMO crops that resist pesticides like Roundup, weed killer, and then dump billions of pounds of chemicals on the crops, which then enters food chain. This is unacceptable. Secondly, the likelihood of unintended gene transfer, thus creating super weeds. Thirdly, is the potential of harming pollinators. Legal problems arise where corporate AG fields pollinate peripheral fields of individual farmers, then claim patent infringement and prevent the farmer from selling their crops. This is perhaps a serious aspect of GMO. Potential risks significantly outweigh the benefits. Corporate AG cannot be trusted as it seeks egregious profits over common good. So those are some of the concerns that we are often faced as policymakers and political actors. I'm certain that this seminar, this talk is a reminder that something should be done, some sensible things should be done with regard to the release of golden rice in Bangladesh. And we have a fairly robust regulatory regime in Bangladesh that we follow the Cartagena Protocol that is the global governance framework, and Bangladesh is also signatory to this. Now, 196 countries are signatories to this protocol, and 46 countries have released 35 GMO crops across the world. The popular varieties are basically, just for your information, alfalfa, apple, canola bean, carnation, chicory, cotton, cowpea, creeping bent grass, eggplant, eucalyptus, flax, maize, melon, papaya, petunia, pineapple, plum, poplar, potato, rice, rose, safflower, soybean, squash, sugar beet, sugarcane, sweet pepper, tobacco, tomato, and wheat. These are the available varieties of GMO. With regard to the governance framework, Bangladesh reaffirms the precautionary principle of the Rio Declaration 15 on risk and human health and environment. And it also recognized the great potential of biotechnology for human well-being when developed and used with adequate safety measures. We also recognize the need to cope with the nature and scale of known and potential risk associated with the living modified organisms. It also acknowledges the rapid expansion of biotechnology and its growing concern on the adverse effects on biological diversity and risks to human health. This protocol does not address food safety issues, however. Risk assessment should be carried out by a case-by-case basis. Provides Biosafety Clearinghouse website administered by the Secretary to the Convention. Also provides advance informed agreement before the first international transboundary movement of living modified organisms into the environment of the importing country. Member government must commit themselves to promoting public awareness, ensuring public access to information, and public consultation. These are some of the regulatory framework in Bangladesh. We have environment policy, agriculture policy, Bangladesh Biodiversity Act 2017, Biosafety Rules 2012, Environmental Rules 2023, Bangladesh Environmental Conservation Act 2010, and Biosafety Guidelines of Bangladesh 2010. So biosafety guidelines, basically it gives it talks about the procedure and how the different committees should work, what's their jurisdiction, and how much time they should keep for this field trial and for the clearance of those committees. Now they have jurisdiction with regard to research in case of government, non-government, for imports, for laboratory tests, for field trials, movement, transfer, transit, and handling with respect to safety and biodiversity in Bangladesh. It also deals with the key responsibilities, risk management, general provisions of biosafety, procedures and guidelines for obtaining permits, procedures for movement, transport, sanctions, and good lab practices. These are some of the important committees. At the apex, we have the National Committee on Biosafety, NCB, headed by the Secretary, Ministry of Environment and Forest. It has 21 members. And the intending laboratory must apply 90 days well ahead of the formal release of the intended product, 90 days ahead of that. And then they can use 45 days to clear that. And in case of denial or rejection of any permit application, then the intending laboratory has 30 days time to make appeal. So we have other committees like Biosafety Core Committee headed by the Director of Environment, Institutional Biosafety Committee. It is with the laboratories and the Biological Safety Officer, field level trial biosafety. I can't see that. Okay. So this is about BT brinjal. It talks about the different stages of its release. This is the GM crop approval database. That is, I tried to get it from ISA website. The case of golden rice, I borrowed this information from BRRI, and it started with GR2E from Eric carbonate golden rice, and what was modified through agrobacteria mediated transformation. It is shortly called AMT, agrobacteria mediated transformation, and beta-carotene gene from maize. And contained trial was conducted in August 2015. Again, confined field trial took place in 2015-16. Again, confinement field trial took place in 2016 and 17. And then one material was selected with confined field trial was done in 2017-18. Then selected best single line, which was evaluated in multi-locations. It was tried in 8 locations in 2018 and 19. Then BRRI submitted its application for release to Ministry of Agriculture in 2017 and then to NCB on 12th April 2017. NCB referred it to Biosafety Core Committee on 24th September 2018 for evaluation. 2 meetings were reportedly held on September and in April 2019. And also there had been some queries which was met on 23rd June 2019 and pending decision from NCB. So further update on the release is not yet known. We'll try to seek further information if available. So from the point of policy, the crux of the problem is how we can, as policymakers, reconcile divergent interest, secure safety, and protection of human being, and also make enough awareness, education, and also from the consumer side, we don't see much happening. We also need to educate the consumers, and they should be knowing that what kind of food they are consuming. So there should be informed choices. And there lies a lot of actions on the part of the policymakers. And lastly, I would like to conclude that taking non-action is not an option. We need to act. And that is with Robert's presence, I think is a reminder that we need to act soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mahfouz. We got an idea about the policy framework in Bangladesh about GMO. And now we finally come to the last discussion. Dr. Mohammad Safwat Islam Sohail, environment. He will be talking about environmental concerns of releasing GMO crops in Bangladesh. And before I give him the floor, I would also like to request the participants who are participating online. If you have queries, questions to Sir Roberts, please give it to your chat box.
Good day, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Chair of the session, Professor Atikul Islam, sir, Vice Chancellor, North University. Honorable keynote speaker, Sir Richard Roberts, all dean sirs, teachers, panelists, guests, and students, a very good noon. I'm really enjoying this discussion, and thanks Professor Richards together with other panel members for the wonderful insights on GMOs. No doubt GMOs contributes to faster crop production, pest resistance, disease resistance, less inputs of herbicides and pesticides. Despite the benefits of GMOs, we also need to understand the risks of introducing GMOs to the environment as well. Unfortunately, research on environmental aspects of GMOs is relatively low, both in global and Bangladesh context. A few research that has so far been conducted either at a laboratory scale or small plot scale without considering temporal variations. Considering these facts, I'll highlight a few environmental issues associated with GMOs, and we'll use a word called claim because these findings are not tested across different ecosystems and temporal scales. And it is claimed that the introduction of GMO crops will not have any negative impact on biodiversity or may have less impact, have high yields compared to the conventional agriculture practices, therefore may reduce pressure to convert natural habitat into agricultural use. Pest populations have declined in some areas with high adoption rates of BT crops. There is no adverse effects to the predators. It is claimed technologies such as drought tolerance, salinity tolerance will ensure high production. Nitrogen use efficiency technology of GMO crops can reduce the input of nitrogen fertilizer and associated runoff to the surface water and to the groundwater. Now I'd like to clarify all these claims with some scientific evidence. In Bangladesh, non-BT brinjal plants were planted at the border of the BT brinjal fields, and the isolation distance was maintained, of course. It was found that BT brinjal, non-BT brinjal was infested by fruit and shoot borer, but in case of BT brinjal plants were not infested, and there was a good presence of insects, including honeybees, ants, flies, beetles, butterflies in the BT brinjal field, indicating no adverse effects of the BT gene on biodiversity. However, to confirm such a claim needs long-term monitoring plots, not at a plot scale. Claiming that GMOs will have no impact on biodiversity might be true for a short period of time. In the long run, such crop may hamper natural ecosystem processes and functions. And our keynote speaker already talked about the natural evolution process, and I'm going to give more emphasis onto those. Natural selection of resistant varieties will be hampered because of GMOs. When more smart weeds and insects evolve, we are not so sure that whether the existing GMOs will be able to protect from those smart and powerful weeds and insects. And unfortunately, we have no answer yet. Another concern is that insect-resistant plants might increase the number of minor pests while reducing the major pests. And this shift can alter entire food chain with new predators of the new insect species. For example, a reduction of insects that serve as a food source for other kinds of wildlife, for example, birds, will suffer because of lack of food availability, and how to address it. Unfortunately, we do not have much scientific research on these issues globally and also in Bangladesh context. Another claim that GMOs will reduce pressure on to the natural habitat. To some extent, yes, it is true. However, if you consider the case of Bangladesh, high-yielding cash crops are responsible for natural habitat destruction. For example, introducing mango orchard, dragon fruit orchards, pineapple orchards, and other valuable cash crops in Chittagong hill tracts negatively impacts biodiversity of this region and was responsible for severe soil erosion in the hill tracts areas. And we must be very careful about introducing high-yielding varieties near natural habitats. And another point, which is a bit controversial, high-yielding claims of uh, uh, genetically modified crops. Yes, it is true. And oftentimes when we talk about or when we claim such things, we uh, do not consider temporal yield stability. Unfortunately, there is not much research. And if we consider, let's say, there are two different plots, one with traditional farming practices and other with GMO crops, we may consider only single time point to compare the yield of these two different plots. But if you consider long-term or time as a factor or issues, we are not so sure whether the yield of that traditional plot will be less. Okay, unfortunately, there is not much research globally and also in Bangladesh. And another claim regarding BT brinjal, Bangladesh Agriculture Research Institute so far developed 22 high-yielding varieties, and among them 4 are BT brinjals related. And recent study conducted by a senior scientific officer from Chittagong, he found that a local cultivar called Potha Begun has yielded near about 43 tons per hectare, where the harvest loss is near about 7%. So in general, the net yield would be around 35 to 37 tons per hectare, which is higher than the BT brinjal varieties, which is near about 20 tons per hectare. I'd be glad to have some feedback from our sector research. So another important issue is drought tolerant GMOs obviously can be a valuable tool to face climate change. However, their success depends on several factors, including the degree of drought tolerance. Most importantly, this technology will not solve water crisis of drought-prone areas. And with increasing global warming, drought will be more severe in future. In such context, I'm afraid that both GMOs and non-GMO crops will face challenges to grow. A cost-effective approach can be adopted to increase water availability within agricultural landscape, such as adding organic fertilizer within the agriculture field. This is an excellent way to increase soil water holding capacity, and research are there that 1%, only 1% increase in soil organic matter will hold or increase or add 20,000 gallons of water per acre. So we probably need to consider those issues as well. Regarding nitrogen use efficiency, I mean, if we want to reduce the inputs of nitrogen related fertilizers, obviously this type of GMOs can be very effective, but at the same time, we should not forget the blessings of Almighty of having leguminous species. There are an excellent nitrogen fixers within the soil profile, and there are research like lentils, peas, beans, peanuts, trees like korui, we call it Sesmania, Sesman, koroch, a wetland species called Pongamia pinnata, can fix near about 30 to 200 kg nitrogen per hectare per crop. And of course, it varies a species to a species. So we probably need to consider these into consideration when we design our agricultural practices. And well, so with all these claims and facts, I would like to say that yes, we need GMO technologies, but then we also need to be very careful about our environmental issues, and we need to ensure a long-term monitoring plots to address all these negative issues. And a few suggestions from my side. We can definitely, or our government can think of introducing GMOs in confined environments like farming within the polyshades or within greenhouse or within nets environment. Addition to that, we can have an integrated land use plan, such as restricted areas for the GMOs, and that's all from my side. And thanks to SIPG for organizing such a wonderful event and inviting an ordinary person like me. Thank you very much.
No, you're not an ordinary person. Thank you, Dr. Shaukat, and we are the end of this designated discussion part. We have now 10 minutes time for open session. So if you have any question and queries, please be very short and precise and ask our keynote discussant. So we'll go for the first the physical question and then from the online. Yes, please introduce yourself and ask the questions.
Former teacher of biochemistry, Bangladesh Agricultural University, Manil Singh. With due respect to our honorable keynote speaker and honorable vice chancellor North South University and honorable discussants and participants, I'd like to give some sort of concrete suggestion from my side. You see, there was a long debate. Long back, there was a debate. Still, there is a debate, and there will be debate in future as well as being addressed by our former speaker, particularly former secretary, and then our Dr. Khalek as well. So what should I say? You see, the long back, I think 8 to 10 years back, while I was in charge of Vice Chancellor of Bangladesh Agricultural University, I attended a seminar at national level where our former education minister, she was asking a question. So, Mr. Vice Chancellor, what should I do? It's a long say. You see, many of you might be knowing it. What should I do if I have got headache? Should I cut my head or should I take paracetamol? What is your comment about this? That was particularly regarding the BT brinjal. Initially, she asked a question like that. Then I said, you see, I was a student of Agricultural University. As a teacher of that university, I had an opportunity to learn biochemistry, biotechnology, then nutrition, genetics, breeding. And as far as my knowledge goes, I should not advise you to cut your head, you see. You see, as it is being spoken by our former secretary, our country is very small as well as very big, you can say. As far as the population is a big country, it's one of the big countries of the world. And as far as the land is concerned, it's very less, you see. Under these circumstances, what we should do? Science is exploring day by day. And our lifespan was what it was 50 years back. What is now? We are about 74 years, 73 years running. Taking all those, you see the GMO and other polluted materials, having polluted materials. And as far as my concern is that, side by side, debates will be there. I don't want to take much more time. We should support, because under these circumstances, you see, our country, particularly large population of a country, they're suffered because most of the vulnerable people, they're lacking of this vitamin A. And you see the golden rice. It is an opportunity for us if we can adapt it in the long run, because that will be our success. And there is a lot of say, but I don't want to take much more time. I was really impressed with the content of the paper read by our Robert. Thank you very much for kind listening.
Thank you very much, sir, for your very positive comments and suggestions. Dr. Norman Suazo.
Thank you very much. I'm Norm Suazo, the Director of the Office of Research here and Professor of Philosophy. So I'm going to speak briefly concerning one issue that I think is raised here that has not been addressed. I've heard two important words used, the word can and the word should. The word can, of course, with reference to the science that can be done. The word should with respect to whether, for example, Bangladesh should be introducing GMO technologies into agricultural practices. I think the problem here is that you don't need only scientists to address these issues. You also need ethicists, those who are involved in environmental ethics, to help with the way in which you might think about these particular issues. My sense is that given the kinds of words that have been used, most are involved in what we in philosophy and ethics would call utilitarian analysis. You're concerned with cost benefit, risk benefit analyses, and these are matters that have to be addressed in substance. I think the comment made about temporal scale from one of our discussions is important, but Dr. Roberts made the same point with respect to how many years do we go waiting for potential answers into the questions we're raising. And there's a debate here between actuality and potential harm. So at some point, I think the ethics has to be engaged as well as the science.
Thank you, Dr. Rahman.
Why don't I hold it then? Okay. I really just have a couple of things. One, you spend a lot of time talking about GMOs and how dangerous they might be and so on. The same is absolutely true for traditionally bred plants. You know, we don't do the tests there. We don't do any of these things. You want to do them just for GMOs and not for the others. Yeah, that seems to me not right. If you're going to do it, you should do it for both. And, you know, I think the ethical issues are interesting, but they apply equally to traditional plants and to GMOs. I really don't see any difference. If you're going to worry about the long-term effects of any of these things, then you do the appropriate experiments, but why single out GM crops? If you think about it, GM crops show precise modifications. There is a precision there that is missing when you're talking about traditional methods. And we already know that traditional methods often lead to problems. You know, we've had potato blights, we've had all sorts of things that have come along because there are so many genes that get transferred. We don't know what most of them are. We don't know what they do. But because we've been doing it a long time, we sort of think it's okay. And I have a hard time with that. I think we should apply the same rules to traditional and to GMOs.
Okay, thank you. So we'll take 2-3 more questions, and before we finish, Dr. Reza.
Thank you. My question is regarding the patent right. So the innovators will enjoy patent, and because of that, sometimes price goes up. So I would like to know how long the innovator will enjoy the patent and at what time they are going to release it. I mean, other people don't require to pay the patent right.
So I think the thing about patents that most people don't realize is that every crop that is introduced into agriculture comes with a patent. Okay? It's not something that's specific for GMOs. It comes with every crop because people are trying to protect their property. Personally, I don't like patents at all. And with golden rice, you should know that Syngenta, who hold the patents on golden rice, are making them freely available to everybody who wants them. So there is no commercial aspect to that at all in golden rice. And I think for food, I don't like the idea of patents. But nevertheless, a capitalist society has decided that this is a good thing and they can make money from it. Again, you know, look for the money, look for the power. You see why people do things.
Okay, so do you have, yes, please introduce.
Thank you very much. My name is Shesh Chaudhary. I'm Additional Secretary to the Government and working as an adjunct faculty in the North-South University. So my question may look like a layman. You see, we are intentionally or unintentionally we're with the GMO foods because of the increased number of population around the globe, especially in the developing part of the world. So what Secretary Agriculture sir already said that when we import something GMO, no question, but when we try to introduce something for the GMO, there are lots of resistances. Nowadays, a very strong group of people are advocating for non-GMO activities, non-GMO foods because of by showing the health hazard of the GMOs. So these people, they are basically termed as the health modifier, and they're basically focusing on everything organic, which requires a lot of time, and one person should have at least 48 hours a day to get everything non-GMO or organic. My two very specific questions. Can a GMO crop contaminate neighboring non-GMO or organic field? This is number one. Number two, how can I say that GMOs are safe when some of the studies categorically shows that it causes some of the very dangerous disease, namely cancer, especially the breast cancer? Thank you.
Well, I don't know where you got that last piece of information from, but it's totally wrong. So there is not a single study. If you show me the study, I'll be happy to show you what's wrong with it, okay? There's not a single good study about that. And again, I would come back for your first point. Traditional crops, GMO crops, they should be dealt with equally. There is nothing special about GMO crops that makes them inherently dangerous. But this is why Greenpeace and why the anti-GMO activists have been so successful, because they had a lot of money to spend, thanks to contributions, to make the case that GMO crops were dangerous. The scientists who were making these things, we don't get any money to defend our science. We don't get any money to go out and advertise about the anti-GMO activists. We get money to do science. We don't get money for advertising. Whereas Greenpeace spend all their money advertising and telling you how bad these things are. And the problem, it's so easy to scare people. And once people get scared, it is difficult to reassure them. And I think Greenpeace have done this entire world a tremendous disservice because of the actions that they took against GMO crops. If they were honest, they would come out now and say, we asked for the science to be done. It's been done. The science says it's safe. We're in favor of them. But they refuse to do that because they think they're going to lose money from contributions if that's the attitude they take.
Okay, so we are not taking any more questions physically, but probably
I have to
response from Mr. Farooq, please.
Thank you. Thank you. I go with the last one, Shish Chaudhary. Yes, organic and GMO, organic is the cultivation practice. So you can go organic cultivation with traditional crops, but GMO is different, so it is not confronting any other things. Regarding Dr. Reza about the IPR, you see when we release BT brinjal, it's a traditional open pollinated variety, so there is no IPR as you get for any company. So our plan was that later on we'll go with hybrids, so IPR will come. So it will be guided with the Intellectual Property Right Act, which we have in our country. And regarding Dr. Mohd Shakwat Hussain, yes, you mentioned about the result of BT brinjal and Chittagong, but you have to compare with the same variety with GMO and same with non-GMO, then we can answer the result of the production. Because you cannot compare with buffalo with meat, say beef meat, because this content is different. So with brinjal, we have more varieties. So same variety with BT and non-BT could give you productivity issue. But the major issue here is that you never told us how much chemical you sprayed in your field. That's the important. Because these varieties of BT brinjal are developed only with short and broad diseases for the less chemical use. That's the important for safety. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we have, okay, the last question, very quick, 30 seconds.
Okay, is not question. I'm seeing some of the misconception here.
Can you
That,
introduce yourself, please? Can you?
Oh, sorry. My name is Mahbub Anam. I'm the managing director of Laltir Seed Limited, one of the seed company. In Bangladesh, the BT brinjal was released and it went through a long process. We started this thing in 2004 and we took more than 15 years to release it. So we talk about the confined trial, then field trial, confined field trial, net house trial, all these protocols are done. So there is no confusion. I think this government has taken a very good initiative. And one thing is good in Bangladesh, that farmers actually lead us. They are leading. If the farmers like it, if the farmers think that they can grow it, and the ultimate consumers, they accept it, then there is no, really, we people cannot do anything. So as Sir Robert said, that in fact, there is nothing called organic. There is nothing called organic. Everything is being muted by side plant or somehow bees are mutating. So we shouldn't try to mislead. I think it's 10 years back, a Greenpeace movement people came here and I asked them that is, do we like to have a famine in our country or we want to feed the people of our country? That makes that answer should come first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anam, especially for coming and joining. Laltir is one of the largest seed company in Bangladesh, and we also need to, when we finalize this policy in Bangladesh, we need to also take care of the concerns also from the seed industry and also from the farmers, definitely, and also from the policymakers. So there's a combined kind of a thing can be done. Last question, please.
It's not question, actually, it's just compliment. At the moment, actually, from the our Agrivision Center of Excellence, I'm doing a research on adoption and diffusion of agriculture technologies in Bangladesh. And in doing that, actually, I have taken the stock of all the technologies that is so far available in Bangladesh. It is including both hard technology and the soft technology. Hard technology means that anything that you touch and feel, and soft technology is the management practices. And so far, since 1971, we have come up with about 3,500 technologies are there in Bangladesh. And in terms of the seeds technologies, Bangladesh Rice Research Institute has released about 112 and 2 are in the pipeline to be released. Bangladesh Institute of Nuclear Agriculture, they have several rice varieties. Bangladesh Agriculture Research Institute, starting from potato, brinjal, and so many different varieties released. Now, when we are doing the farmers' opinion we are taking, and farmers should be given some choice. I agree with Sir Robert that it is the release that is if government allows, let farmers decide actually what they should take or not, as long as the scientists actually clearly says that this is no harmful to any human being. So then there should not be any policy restriction in releasing that. That's what actually I feel. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Nazrul. We have a few questions in the online. I cannot take all, but just to summarize few of them. So one question to Sir Richard was how the developing country like Bangladesh would tackle its dependency from multinational GM seed companies. Or same kind of the question that how can we make sure that we are not becoming hostage of multinational companies like Monsanto or others?
Well, the nice thing about GMOs is that they're actually very easy to make. You no longer need big companies like Monsanto and Co. in order to make them. It doesn't cost a lot of money to make them. You can do it all yourself here. We just heard from a gentleman who is owner of a seed company. It's easy to do. You can easily do it in the labs. You can take it out to the farmers. And the thing that costs money is regulation. Trying to satisfy the regulators who just make unreasonable demands on people who produce these compounds, produce these plants that are good. So that's.
Thank you. I am sorry that there were a few more questions from online, but because of shortage of time, we are completing this question and answer session here. And now I would like to invite our session chair, Professor Atikul Islam, Vice Chancellor of North-South University, to give his speech.
Good afternoon, everyone. I must concede that I know nothing about the research on GM food at all. Now, Sir Rich Roberts has been a good friend of us over the years. He has helped us in the International Advisory Board, and he has come to Bangladesh to inform us about the latest findings in that area of research. We all respect him. Looks like it's taking a little bit of time in convincing the policymakers
that this is beneficial overall to the population of Bangladesh. My satisfaction is that, look, a university has a social responsibility to discover and innovate. The university also has the responsibility to promote in a free and fair manner debates on policy issues that have national importance and global significance. This particular policy on GM food is of tremendous importance to us, because here is a kind of a rise that can automatically help make up the deficiency of vitamin A in children, in the population, and save lots of lives. That's one claim. On the other hand, there is caution that there could be some deleterious effects of it. So there's some suspicion of superweeds and other things. So it's good that, in a way, that our policymakers are taking their time. But once you have conclusive evidence that something is going to an improvement over the existing state of affairs, losing time also has its costs. I leave it to the policymakers. Let me thank Sir Rich Roberts once again for coming and visiting NSU and informing us all of the latest in that area. I thank the scientists, the policymakers, the researchers, media, and our students who have come to attend this particular workshop and has made generous contributions. I also thank people who have joined online. It is our policy, or so, in principle, North-South University believes that we have a responsibility to disseminate knowledge, to disseminate the results of research, and also to promote policy debates in the greater interest of the university, in the greater interest of the country, and sometimes of global importance. Let me thank all of you once again, and hopefully we'll have more seminars on GM food and other related areas in future. Thank you all.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chancellor. I would like to let you know before we finish this session with a vote of thanks that SIPG, the South Asian Institute of Policy and Governance, as part of its practices, we will formulate a policy brief out of today's discussion with the keynote and also 4 discussions. They gave very interesting points. And this policy brief will be used for policy advocacy with the Bangladeshi policymakers. So that one thing that we will do on the basis of this specific discussion. And also I would also want to let you all know that it was very generous from the side of the Rich Roberts because he specially managed this time, 1-day time, to stay in Bangladesh with our request, as Vice Chancellor was saying, that he's a very good friend of North-South University. And every time we request him, he tries to make it happen with his very busy schedule. And he just flew directly from Boston yesterday morning. And then he has a very tight schedule next to 3 days. But also that we are so happy by seeing that on a very difficult day of holding a national seminar, we had huge participation and the discussion was excellent, which will help us to produce a very good policy brief. Now I would like to request the Dean of School of Health and Life Sciences, Professor Dr. Hassan Mahmood Reza, to conclude and give a vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Honorable Session Chair, Professor Atikul Islam, Vice Chancellor of North University. Honorable Keynote Speaker, Nobel Laureate, Sir Richard J. Roberts. Professor Tawfiq, who has been taking a lot of initiatives to conduct today's program. And discussions, we have Mr. Anwar Farooq, former Secretary, Dr. Mahfuzul Haq, Dr. Abdul Khalik, and Dr. Shaukat Islam. Invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. We have just heard a very brilliant and very convincing lecture from Nobel Laureate Rich Roberts. And today's topic was GMO foods, GMO crops, policies and regulations that have been taken worldwide, and also what we are doing in Bangladesh. The beauty of today's presentation, I must say that Rich Robert is a scientist and he could tell the things in a very complex way because he knows everything. He did not say the hardcore science behind it, but he made the whole presentation so nicely in a so simple language that all people who are present here or virtually connected were able to get the information clearly. Thank you, Robert, for your very clear and simple presentation on a very difficult topic. Then on this topic, 4 discussants delivered their opinions, and Professor Dr. Anwar Farooq actually told how Bangladesh is actually going with GMO crops and how Bangladesh is positive in introducing and releasing this kind of crops. Because in a country like Bangladesh, where 17 million people are living and we need food. So to ensure the food security, we need to increase the yield, and GMO crops can give better yield. That is believed, and this is actually proved. And then Professor Khalik told about some biotechnology aspects of the GMO food, and he also recommended several things probably that can be well discussed later to make the fine recommendation out of that. And Dr. Mahfuzul Haq, he actually told about the biosafety framework. Of course, this is very important when we are releasing any GMO crops in Bangladesh. That should be followed properly, that should be monitored. Therefore, there should be a monitoring body. This monitoring will be done to assess whether the person or the companies who are releasing GMOs are really complying with the biosafety rules and regulations that have been developed in Bangladesh. So I think this policy and regulations is very important, and Bangladesh is probably in the final stage of granting this kind of policy. Government is considering is very seriously. Yesterday, I had a meeting with Bangladesh Academy of Sciences, and I came to know that there is a 14-member committee in Bangladesh Academy of Sciences, and that committee has actually made some protocol in gene editing for the plants, and that protocol is under the final consideration by the government. So when all these protocols, all these policies and regulations will be in effect, probably it will be good to monitor how we are dealing with the GMOs together with organic or non-GMO crops. And finally, Dr. Shaukat, he actually brought some scientific evidence, and he has clearly mentioned that releasing GMO does not actually cause much damage to the biodiversity. Anti-GMO people often say that if we release this heavily, then it is going to damage the biodiversity. On the other hand, I think at present time, we have been observing that our farmers are applying too much chemicals, pesticides, herbicides for producing their crops. And that is actually causing the damage of biodiversity. We can see in our rivers, there are no fishes. We can see there are many insects that were around us they are not available today. So this means that GMO crops is not going to harm the environment. And of course, there is a concern about health on human and animal. The debate is there among scientists and also the civil societies. So we need to do more and more research, and that research findings need to be disseminated through this kind of seminar, conference, and also through mass media. Overall, today, we enjoyed a very nice scientific session. We have learned well, and probably this will help us to motivate ourselves and motivate many people, many policymakers in Bangladesh and around the world, so that at the end, we would like to live healthy, we would like to eat. And for the growing population all over the world, we need to produce increased amount of food, and that can be possible by using GMOs. Thank you everyone for attending today's seminar. Today, actually the day, despite having a lot of political issues outside, we can see that a good number of attendees are here. I offer my heartfelt thanks on behalf of North-South University. Again, thank you so much to Sir Richard Roberts for attending this seminar and enlighten us with your very, very informative lecture. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Rizal. So with this, we end the seminar here. I would like to request our students, if you want to have a photo session with